I mean, I was shit at soldering when I had 2 hands.
Put me in the sea, you muppet!
So I designed this specifically to go in cars. One of our big problems, it's not actually so much water, it's dust.
What the hell is going on in my life?
And I'm now going to give away the secret.
We're back with Kiff McManus, and we're going to be talking today about your work on the wilder side of sound recording. Kiff's done over 80 episodes of Top Gear, all the way back from...
Since the Jeremy, Richard and James sort of started together, really.
Wow. So it's almost 15 years until the point at which the show
Split.
they left.
Yeah.
And upon them leaving, then you went with them onto the Grand Tour.
Yeah, I went onto the Grand Tour with them for the first year or so.
Right.
And since then I've done bits for them and bits for Top Gear, but I've tended not to do that quite so much anymore.
Right. So we're going to be talking a bit about, we're going to be showing some scenes from Top Gear, from Grand Tour, Who Dares Wins, maybe a bit of Bear Grylls, and just to show you the kind of skills and experiences Kiff has built up over the many years he's been working in this industry, specialising in kind of these are non-scripted shows, right? How do you best describe them?
Well, they're usually dumping people into a situation, stirring them up with a stick and then seeing what happens.
Amazing. And I think Top Gear is a really interesting one, and also the Grand Tour, because they do that, but they do it at such high, the quality level.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just so terribly well done.
Yeah. And it always seems and feels so seamless and effortless when you watch the show. It's just they arrive somewhere, they come out of their cars, it's as if everything has just kind of magically come together, but I'm sure there's so much prep involved in getting it to feel so effortless. And they sound clean in environments where normally just for us to get a white office shirt it could be a scratchy mess. But despite that, you've got them wearing very tight shirts often, and then you're also dealing with huge amounts of water and rain and wind and all sorts of elements. Seat belts, and they're in and out of vehicles, and I suppose they just have to keep going. Like you don't get much chance to tweak once they're on the road, right?
No, not too much. No, it's got to really work.
Yeah.
So you tend to put in like lots of systems because you always, over any one show, something's going to fail at some point.
Yeah.
You're going to have an accident. So you just have to make sure if we have an accident, then what?
Right.
So it's all about that.
And talking about accidents, I think we have a really good first example from the Columbia special of the Grand Tour. So do you want to set the scene for us? I think we got it lined up here. The guys have arrived on a beach somewhere?
Yeah, that's right. They arrive, it's still completely dark.
Right.
They arrive on a beach, and the story is that they're looking, Richard has called them here for the start of their special adventure.
Yeah.
And they can't find Richard, and then you can hear him 100 metres out at sea. And then slowly as it gets lighter, you can see he's sitting on something that's floating in the water, and that's his car.
Yeah.
It's a huge monster Jeep.
Yeah.
And it's been wrapped in polythene and is floating in the sea.
Genuinely it is.
Yeah.
All that stuff, it is real. A real car floating.
That is his car.
I suppose what I'd like to ask you for this scene is how are they rigged? And also, how did you manage to get the range? How was this sort of planned out for you, this particular scene?
Well, I went to that beach the day before and just did a range test on the radios and a frequency check to make sure that we weren't going to be surprised, because we're going to get there very early in the morning and then it all had to happen.
Yeah.
And like a lot of Grand Tour, Top Gear scenes, it's not repeatable.
Yeah.
So it really must work the first time. Okay, you can perhaps get a line again, but the thing must work. So you try to think about everything. So we knew we had the range from where we were.
He's quite far out there, isn't he?
He is, yes. I mean, they always say, no, I'm not going in the water, and then
they walk in
they go into the water. So you can never really believe them when they say that. So you always sort of work on the worst. So he's in the water now, swimming.
Properly. So how did you get range when he's kind of fully submerged almost? I mean, he's completely soaked.
A lot of unpacking.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning. Well, where do we begin? Why is your car there?
Well,
where and how is he sounding as good
Okay,
as
because we knew he was going to go in the water. We put a ZFR 300 recorder and a Wizicom TX in an aqua pack on his back. And because I knew he was, for a lot of the time he was going to be up to here in the water.
Yeah.
I put a chest strap around him, and
Okay.
it was like quite high on his shoulders. So until he was there, I could still get radio signal off him.
So aquapack through the back of a chest strap, and then it was sort of
Yes.
sideways up here. Okay,
That's
cool.
it. So standing on the beach with a Yagi, directionally you could pick him off.
Right.
And that worked quite well. And then the mic, the big thing about if someone's going to get wet with a mic, what you have to remember is for a scene like this, because they're going in the sea,
Yeah.
I'm not going to use a DPA.
Yeah.
It's it's one thing. It's not a terribly robust mic, but also it's a terribly expensive mic.
Yeah.
So I tend to use Countryman B3s, which are, sound nice. They're not a DPA, but they're good sounding mics. They're also super waterproof, and the diaphragm is at the end. So providing you hang it facing downwards, you can completely immerse it in water. When it comes out, the drops will fall off the diaphragm and bang, it's back working. So you get, and here I am again.
Yeah.
So providing that's the thing, facing down, and the gagging can't be trapping the water,
Right.
so you need to sort of leave a channel. But other than that, so this, on Richard, the mic's packs are high on his back, and then the mic is running over his shoulder and facing down about here.
And I presume it must be stuck to his soaking wet.
It's stuck to his
jacket.
soaking wet jacket, yes.
Right.
You use, on this, one thing, he's got two mics on.
Okay.
One for the ZFR and
Right.
one for the radio mic. Also, you use like a little. I'll show you a rig in a little while. How you can actually rig, how you can dress a mic to sort of stand up to a lot of stuff. But the important thing is use a bit of like toupee tape as the final stick, because toupee tape can be really, really strong, and that will hold the thing in place. And then, because of all this sort of stuff, he's swimming, he's fighting with an enormous wrapped car.
Yeah.
He's going to move around quite a lot.
Yeah.
So he's going to tug on that stuff. So
Yeah.
little safety pins.
Oh, right.
Just wrap a bit of tape around the mics, the mic wires, and then through the tape into the shirt, and that gives, at least if it actually does get wrenched,
off, it's still
it'll wrench it
hanging.
on the pin before it wrenches
Yeah.
on the mic.
Oh, okay. So it will put pressure on the so any tugs on the cable, it won't pull the sticky tape. Right.
You're
Yeah.
hoping.
Yeah.
You're hoping that everything
Yeah.
will work, but it's like if one fails, the other should hold it.
And how does it, if it was to be tugged from below, is it, you said the cable...
The cable would run in this because you want the mic to be hanging downwards, so that the cable would run over his back.
Right, okay. And is that a cable running over the back? Is that normal for Jeremy and
No, Jeremy and James normally I'd run it up, actually up over the tummy,
Yeah.
and then up to somewhere. But you stick it on pretty hard because
Yeah.
both of them quite like a tight shirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jeremy, especially if he's tucking and things like that, there's quite a lot of pulling going on, so you do need to secure it pretty well.
Okay, so on these, for Jeremy, was he wearing a DPA for this scene?
He was, yeah.
Okay, so I think this scene gets a bit hairy in unexpected ways for you guys, right?
Yeah, it was all the thought was, okay, it's going to be Richard. Richard, we really have to be careful of it. And his car was, we didn't put the main rig in because we just thought we're not sure if this starts to sink.
Yeah.
We don't want a main sound rig in there. So we put Zaxxon ZFR 300 in there above the visor. We thought, because if it sinks that much,
Right.
we've lost everything. So fair enough. If we've lost a DPA, a Zaxxon, that's fine. So we thought, okay, well that's it. The others again had aquapacks on because we could kind of see that although they promised they wouldn't like walk in the sea.
Yeah.
Everything going rather marvellously, and then they start to tow
Yes.
Richard's car out by using James's car as an anchor, and it starts moving backwards towards the sea. Now this wasn't planned.
Yeah.
This really wasn't planned. Like so many things, Top Gear Grand Tour. It's they're going to go there and they're going to muck about, and that's about as far as anyone knows. So just do whatever occurs to them, and that was not planned. So Jeremy sees that it's going backwards
Yeah.
and thinks this will be funny. So just keeps going and winches his car right into the sea. I'll show you the bag that we've designed.
Yeah.
Well, I got some ladies in Gillingham to make me, which we put into all the cars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very splash proof, but it's not going underwater in the sea proof. So this scene, we lost an entire sound kit, mixer, receiver.
You lost receivers, and so this is his Fiat,
yeah.
which goes completely submerged. Well,
it goes to above the seat level in water, and the things, because we're seeing into the Fiat, it's got to be on the floor. But the car was never meant to go in the sea, you know. And there's Richard getting hammered by waves.
So what did that mean? So on day one of the shoot,
we lost an entire sound kit. Okay, that's why I know you were going to ask about, you know, what do you take on shoots like this?
Yeah.
Spares. Because you have to think, if we lose something, because you really might, and this time, the first day, which is you know, unusual, if you lose something, how can we get around that?
Yeah.
So for everything we have spares. So we had, I think, 2 spare mixers. We all had spare receivers, transmitters, cables, things like that. So we hadn't planned to replace one of these, but we could, you know, out of our kit that we just bring along.
Yeah.
And what normally happens is, for the day-to-day stuff, you figure out roughly what you're going to be doing. You have things in your car that you know you'll need. But the vehicles which are bringing, for example, all the personal bags and stuff, and all the empty boxes, we have a couple of big pellies in there with stuff that we all just brought along. We're not actually charging for, but we've all just brought along because what if?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure a lot of people who do jobs abroad, they might not charge for a second mixer, but they'll bring one, because if their mixer breaks, they're left looking a bit sort of silly, aren't they? So we all bring a lot of spare stuff on these shoots.
And what about if someone's mic breaks or aerial breaks? Do you ever get nitty gritty and soldering iron and that sort of thing? Or?
No, I am shit at soldering. I mean, I was shit at soldering when I had 2 hands. Now I'm terrible at it. No, but so I won't try and repair things. If there's someone on the shoot who's brilliant at it, then I'll say, would you look at this for me? But on the whole, no. I just bag it, put it in the thing, and I give it to an expert when I get home, and I just break out another one and stick that on.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So the bag itself, you've brought it with you, right?
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, let's put it on the table. Just going to close the laptop quickly so we have a good look.
So I designed this specifically to go in cars. So it's this isn't what you wear over your shoulder. We use a much bigger rig. We use like 688s in these days, or it could even be an 888 these days. You can wear it as a rig thing. You just put your things there and you have it here. But this is actually designed to go in cars. So it's in and of itself, it's very, very splash proof. I mean, you can't put it underwater, as we saw, but you could probably turn a hose on it and it would be fine.
This was the one that went in.
No, this is just another. Well, I had several of them made, so I designed it specifically for this sort of thing. So if you see, like the bottom is all covered in. This is waterproof. There are things to keep it, off standing water.
Yeah.
There are lots of hard fixing points so you can bolt it to a car. Because again, that's something. If you're leaving something unattended in the car, it's got to be tied down. Because if they have a crash, which happens, you don't want that rocketing forward and taking someone out. So inside, a rather clever thing, because one of our big problems, it's not actually so much water, it's dust.
Right.
So we go so many places, and dust kills gear, because a lot of it's got salt in it, it just corrodes everything. So the output, so we've got holes here.
That's
so you pull an XLR out there or whatever, and then you just close that around it, and it maintains a reasonably clean environment for your kit.
Velcro all around to keep them stuck.
And to stick pretty much, because you know how many things you sometimes need to stick to a bag to hold them. So then you've got, this is a 633. We've used 633 for years because they're small, they've got enough channels. So normally you'd have in a car rig, you'd have a radio mic on the person, and that's your go-to sound,
Yeah.
really, because in a car there's a lot of rumble. It's very close.
Yeah.
You always rig it. If I'm the driver, seatbelt's running like that, you
Yeah.
rig it there because the
Okay.
cameras are fixed there. So if I turn this way, I get quieter, which makes sense for the cameras. And if I
Yeah.
turn towards the cameras,
Yeah.
I get louder. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of natural sound, and also keeps it away from the seatbelt.
Yeah.
So you've got a receiver in here. I don't know if you can see that. It's tucked in there in a little pocket.
Fuel Wizzy. Yeah.
So that's in there.
So that's.
I mean, it's
also,
hard
yeah,
to see, but it's sort of designed to be hard to see.
Mhm.
That's the point. It goes in a footwell or just as tucked under a seat it can be. And so if your camera runs across it, it won't leap out.
Yeah.
Then you've got your powering. So you've got an MP1 in here with a shoe.
Oh, is it? How long does one MP1 last? For
On a
this?
rig like this, 6 hours or so,
Okay.
because you're only running essentially
Yeah.
a small mixer,
Yeah.
one RX. So you're not actually putting out a lot of power. You can, if you've got to leave it for a long time, we can run like a block battery into it.
Yeah.
So then you've got a radio mic receiver in here. That'll go to one channel. Then you've got a
Yeah.
phantom powered XLR running out. So that you can either, what we normally do in cars, the best mic really for a car is another personal mic if you're going to plant it on the car. If you can get because in most cars, some change, and in fact in that episode one is radically different, but in most cars, the sunscreen, the sun
the
visor,
yeah.
is in a pretty good position. And remember, in these cars, the cameras are fixed. They're actually bolted onto the car. So you can look at that camera really carefully and say, the shot ends there. So you can move that. So it doesn't have to be behind the visor. It can be stuck to the ceiling. You just get it as close as you can, and preferably orientated slightly towards
Yeah.
the cameras, so you get that
Yeah.
louder, quieter.
How do you mean? I've seen the shots on Top Gear with them driving constantly. Their hair is, flying backwards, and there's windows wide open. I mean, how do you wind protect the DPAs for those?
Okay, the
situations?
one on the roof isn't too bad because actually you don't get a lot of airflow over the roof.
Yeah.
It tends to come in and wherever the other window go out. So because the roof is normally slightly bold, you don't get a lot of airflow over it. You stick a fluffy over the top, but that's usually enough. I mean, and if it's not, you do something else. Put two on or something.
Putting a microphone on sticking it to the jacket, I'm seeing them, and the wind and the elements are all hitting that microphone. Kiff's going to show us how he does the rig and the particulars for the placement of the microphone. I think this is pretty much across all contributors. This is like a standard.
This is something that in the first Vietnam special we figured out, and I have to say, of all the things I've learnt, this has probably helped me more than any other. So, and I'm now going to give away the secret.
Oh, well, okay.
So,
is this in the way? Shall I move that slightly?
What you need is whatever mic. This is a lot easier with something like a COS because it's a small microphone. But you take a sticky pad and you. Okay. So then you need to find out where on a DPA where the diaphragm is. So you pull the cap off, and where those holes are, that's the pickup surface. So
can you show that to camera? Because the DPA, actually one side of the DPA's got the holes. So actually the microphone is listening in that direction, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And on the other side there's no holes, right?
No, on the other side, none.
Yeah.
So on a DPA, you need to do this. On a COS or a B3 or, any other mic, you don't. Unless it was a tram, in which case obviously you do. So basically you find out which is the pickup side.
Sure.
Then you put the DPA with the pickup side away from the sticky.
Facing that out.
Facing that outwards. Yeah. And then, to give you the most security, you get a bit of toupee tape. and you run that along the mic underneath, obviously underneath the capsule. Because what you want to do is you want the wind cover to stick to this, and you want to hold the mic on the flat down. You don't want it to come adrift or be pulled out. Because remember, if it's being tugged, you need to keep this in this position. So then you just, this is a little fiddly, but you do all this beforehand. So it's ready to go on the morning. So you have fun
prepping mics.
Fun prepping mics the day before. Okay, so you pull that off. So that's now
surrounded
sticky.
and sticky.
And then you take a fluffy, in the colour depending on the shirt colour. And I'll just take the first one that comes out. Okay, this is a camouflage one that I had made some years ago.
That's cool.
So you just put that on there. Push it down all round. And that is your gagging. Now what you do, I know these are meant to go so this stops the wind, but actually it doesn't very much.
No.
So, but this does. So it's completely impermeable to wind and water. It's a piece of plastic. So if you put this, you take that off, it's very sticky, and you put this side facing out here, or better under a t-shirt, there, then actually that's completely windproof. Okay, if wind can certainly come in around the sides, but mostly if people are facing into the wind, like for example there, they're looking out to see where the wind is coming from. Right. It works a dream. Now, if the other thing is, say someone like, someone's doing what Richard's doing. Now that's sticky, but it's not super sticky. So what I would do on that, put that down there. I'll get a piece of this. Now this is proper toupee tape, so it's really good.
Wig sticking on top.
Yes, exactly. You can shower in it. It will last for a couple of days. You get a square piece of that. Stick it on there.
So adding surface area, essentially.
What you are, but also what you're doing is any bits that the fluffy isn't being held by the.
So the bits of fluffy around the edges can kind of stick to that as well.
Exactly. So that holds the fluffy on. Then you just nip off the.
Sorry,
the scissors aren't terribly sharp. You nip off the corners. If you want to.
Do Richard Henderson, they must have done this quite a bit. Do they end up sticking their own mics on quite a lot?
No, we always do them.
Right, okay.
It's just, I know some people do. I just rather do it myself because just a tiny little mistake. And I can suffer for that all day long. And so I'd just rather, it's not I don't trust them, it's just I don't trust them. So that will stick to bloody near anything. And provided you get it on before it's wet, that will stay even once the shirt's wet. And then wrap a little bit of tape. If you've got two mics, so ZFR, you have the second one there, wrap a bit of tape around there, leave a bit extra and a little safety pin through there. And then, especially if they can get wet, like for example Richard, you see Richard, you hang it like
Pointing
that.
Downwards. Right.
And that has got me out of more shit than I can possibly tell you.
So the safety pin goes around the cable so that if this was to come unstuck, it would still sort of stay.
I'd first put some tape around the table, like a bit of gaffer or something like that, so it's properly stuck down. And I usually do this when there's two cables, you've got a double mic on someone, and then you go through the gaffer tape, and then that just basically, the pull will transfer. Before it transfers to this, it will transfer to the pin. I mean, none of them will take it if you really give it a wrench, but it will stop this being tugged. An inch down.
Oh, nice.
So that is, I'd say, that is a really useful tip.
I love the finding the right sort of position for the DPA, finding the cap. So that's something you have to sort of really be conscious of where that goes. It does make a big difference, I presume.
It does, because what you're doing is you're using the fluffy, not as what it's intended for, as a wind gag. You're using it actually just to pad out, to lift the DPA or any mic head slightly away, so there's room for the sound to go. And also, the longer the hair, the more run that will give you over a hairy chest or another piece of clothing. It will stop that sort of scratchy sound.
So I presume so for this shot
Richards
here, Richards
will have two, well, you can't see because it's rather brilliantly done. Two down one side of his shirt, I would guess, on the buttons, on that side.
Okay. Shall we have a little look-see at where some of the rigs are that you've put in the cars for this show, because the car rigs again. So these are actually hardwired, right? So the DPA's in the cars.
Yeah, hardwired. Just because it's one of those things. What if?
Yeah.
We have been in places where you get a sudden hit of RF that can absolutely mess up all radio sort of mics. So what we do is we have one radio mic on them, and that's usually the point of call, the first point of call. Then we have a hardwired mic, so that's much less liable to interference.
Yeah.
You do have to watch where you run the wires. You don't run it over like an alternator or anything, but you know, other than that.
Actually, while we were talking about radio mics, one of the maddest scenarios with radio mics I've seen is on the Vietnam special of Top Gear, where it's like monsoon season, isn't it? It's a wet season in Vietnam, and it's insane. So Hammond's got what's this called, like a kind of a poncho, and they're like. Jeremy's completely soaked. They're all completely soaked. So what are their rigs on this, and how is it that we can still hear them?
That's a good question, really. I mean, it's the same. This is where we invented that. So that's what's happening there.
Right.
In these, there would have been COS 11s.
Right, yeah.
Because DPAs weren't that prevalent then. This is a long time ago.
2009? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would be going round to... they had bum bags around their back. So what we did is, because there weren't personal recorders at that time, so what we had to do, we had to actually pick this up as it happened. Yes, I know, it makes me want to cry, doesn't it? We had to pick it up as it happened. So what we needed to get the reception off their radios, for sure. So they were all on bikes, so we had two cameras sitting on two bikes facing backwards, and me sitting on a third bike facing backwards with a boom in my hook and a rain bag over the top of my mixer, my hand in the rain bag through the mixer, sitting backwards for 1,000 kilometres, I think we did.
Oh, that sounds like torture.
Yeah, it was really, really uncomfortable, I'll tell you.
If anyone's not seen the Vietnam special, I really recommend it, because it's a bit unusual for Top Gear, isn't it? Because it's on motorbikes the whole way through, and I imagine that the usual sort of like rig that you might have established by now with cars, that's all out the window. This is purely radios. There's no rigs on a motorbike. When they
mooted this to us, we said, okay, you know, can we get any recorders like onto the bikes? They said, there's just no room. We've got just enough room for cameras, and that's it. We thought, okay, so are they wearing like helmets or anything like that? We thought, you know, perhaps we can...
Yeah, tin pans can do.
And he said, sometimes, but generally not. Go, okay, and how about clothes? Just their normal clothes. And you go, oh, no, how about the weather? It's raining. And we thought, God, you know, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
I mean, it was very, very... Now, at the time, it was impossible. But we kind of managed it anyway. I think more through blind optimism, sort of willing to have a go than anything else. It was.
The one thing you were saying to me about this, which is, we've got to remember, back 2009, we didn't have we didn't have like the 688s with a portable recorder. At the time, you're sort of transferring from DAT into some I don't even know if there really was a good recorder at that time.
There wasn't a good digital recorder mixer.
Multi-channel, yeah. So you were actually recording this onto a Zaxcom dual transmitter,
Yes.
which isn't really designed to be like the primary recorder, but
No.
but it was actually recording all of their voices.
Yeah, it was for this because
yeah.
our mixers couldn't record,
Yeah.
and I was sending stereo sound to the two cameras on the motorbikes, but we couldn't. I'm sitting on a motorbike. I know if I've got the sound from them, but I can't know that I'm getting the sound to the camera, and that was the only place it was going to go at this stage of TV technology.
The master sound would go onto the camera.
Yes.
back then,
Yeah,
right?
but I couldn't monitor that, and
Yeah.
also I was sitting on a motorbike, which has all the attendant problems of an engine,
Yeah.
and they were sitting on two motorbikes.
Yeah.
And I thought, we just can't, we can't risk that, because we could easily do 100 miles and go to listen back, and it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was really early days in Zaxcom recorders, and they had a stereo transmitter which could record and then send. So we used that as the send for the cameras.
Sending, yeah.
So they were getting a stereo feed, but also I was recording as a direct output from my mixer into this little thing, which had wires coming out all over the place, which is hung on my chest. So it was very. We were pushing technology sort of a bit further than it was comfortable to go, but we did it. I mean, it worked.
And when Zaxcom came out with the personal recorders with the mini SD cards, were you one of the first to take on and use those for shows as well?
Yes, absolutely. After this, we wrote to Glenn at Zaxcom and just said, look, love this feature,
Yeah.
but ergonomically it's just a piece of shit. Because it literally had, it wouldn't even sit on a table. It had plugs coming out of every direction. So there was no way you could put it down without joggling a small plug into a very complicated little piece of kit.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but once they came out with the actual recorders, the ZFRs, then we went into them straight away.
Cool.
And for things like this, and in fact all subsequent shoots, whenever we were in places where we just didn't know, what the RF was going to be like, what we were going to come across, we'd put a ZFR on them as well as a TX.
Right, okay.
And like quite a few times, that was the only thing that saved us from...
Oh, wow, okay.
in Africa there was a time where they had to hire local radios in, but these things were putting out, I have no idea how many
Motorola radios.
Yeah,
right.
but they were jacked up so strong. They were putting out, I have no idea how many milliwatts of power, but it was like huge.
Yeah.
So every time they keyed, it would actually turn off the radios.
Right.
And sometimes it would turn off the mixer.
Oh, God.
So, they're off on some sort of, some veldt somewhere.
Yeah.
How are you doing? Poof, everything finished.
Wow.
But luckily, because we had the ZFRs on them,
Yeah.
everyone was like, no, what? But because we had those, actually the program was, it didn't suffer at all. But they were the point of the last point of like, if everything else fails, at least we got them.
Yeah.
So I'm a massive fan, and I use them like later on to to push that envelope a bit further.
Yeah.
With Who Dares Wins, Bear Grylls The Island, and things like that.
So this is sort of going into Bear Grylls The Island and Who Dares Wins. This is stepping out into much more kind of contributor-led dramas where you really have no idea. I mean, Top Gear and Grand Tour, there's some concept of where they're going to be that day and what they might do, although obviously things can go wildly differently. But with this, you don't know what's going to happen, and
only in the broadest possible sense.
So when you were introduced to Bear Grylls The Island season 1, what were you told, and what were your initial kind of thoughts on how to handle that job?
Well, they approached me to do it, and they already had they'd approached several people actually about how to do it. And there were a lot of ideas, some of them, well, most of them were, very, very expensive, and also technically really, really difficult.
Yeah.
but possible.
Yeah.
Using GPS and things like that.
Right.
But there was another sound recordist involved as well, a chap called Simon Dyer.
Okay. Yeah,
And we sort of sat down and tried to figure out a way of doing this, because there was only going to be one of me on the island, and I couldn't be running around with the sound kit all the time.
Yeah.
Because I also had to essentially survive on the island and help everyone else survive on the island. So we needed it, and also people were going to split up. 2 or 3 people would go on exploring around the island.
Yeah.
2 would go off fishing. 2 would go to get water.
Yeah.
A couple would go looking for crabs or something. I don't know. But so it was all over this island, and the island's perhaps 2.5 miles long, half a mile across. So it was huge.
Yeah.
So I thought we have to be able to break this down. So I thought what we could do is if we put mini recorders on everyone, we had, I think, 7 cameras, 3, we had a cameraman, 2 shooting directors, and we had another 4 cameras, I think, 3 or 4 cameras, that the cast, essentially, what everyone was encouraged to pick up.
Yeah.
And the argument being, we're here to document this.
Yeah.
If you're going to do something, document it, otherwise no one will ever know what we've done.
But there's no booms, right?
No, there's no booms. There were top mics on the cameras, but on the whole, we just had to sort of have recorders on everyone 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So then the big problem is you're going to record thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of audio. So you must have a system of time code that across everything.
Yeah.
So we set up to start with, it was a bit more complicated, and then that failed like the night before we went. So we sort of made it a bit more simple. So we had I had a rucksack with 2 V-Lock batteries powering a locket box. And that locket box went to an IFB sender.
Yeah.
It was always XCOM this time. So the locket box we set at the beginning, we powered it, and because we had a dual V-Lock, I could swap out the V-Locks, so that power never got interrupted during the whole time. The IFB, we hung this rucksack, well, I hung the rucksack actually, there's no one else there doing it with me. I hung this on a tree in our camp.
Yeah.
So anything within a decent radius
Got a
of
wireless
that
time code.
would timecode jam every time it came into range.
Yeah, cool.
Now the Zaxxon recorders should be almost frame perfect for 5 or 6 hours, and no one's going to be gone for much more than that.
Yeah.
Even if they were,
Yeah.
1 or 2 frames, you can jog it in.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
if you can't find that piece of audio, you just can't find it.
Yeah.
And then all the cameras had ERXs on them, which again took a wireless timecode feed from the IFB and jammed the cameras.
So what does the ERX do exactly?
ERX, what it does, it receives a signal from the IFB, and it can actually receive audio from a feed from a Zaxcom.
Right.
And you can use that to put audio into a camera, but personally I've never have. I always found that a bit, the hookup was always a bit tenuous, but what it does do very well is it receives time code very well.
Right. Okay.
And that it can feed that into a camera. Also, you put it in a small waterproof pelly case, latch it to the camera.
Right. Okay.
It's got batteries for, its batteries to last all day long.
Right.
So it's a question of, in the morning I'd get up early, go around, put new batteries in all the ERXs, make sure they're jammed from the central time code. Then I'd go around all the cast, everyone, including me, wore like a Sam Brown belt, which we designed for this.
Can we? This is the really interesting here, because you're obviously, the challenge was, how are they going to sound good when they are hacking their way through the forest, or when they're in extreme winds or getting wet,
or when they're wearing
on.
nothing
Yeah,
apart from their
wearing,
underpants. Yes.
So there's some images of this which you could show me, like, quite how the setup worked. I've got it here. How did you get this made? And was this like a custom, custom thing?
It was custom made. We realised we had to get some way of putting a mic on and holding it roughly in position that could take, could sound to wind, movement and things like that. Also, we had to incorporate something that could waterproof and protect a ZFR recorder.
Yeah.
So what we came up with these small Pelly cases, which we had modified to put a military waterproof connector in. So we got a wire that went from the ZFR recorder, which is a standard mic wire, it's the same as a Wizzycom uses, that plug to the female end of the military connector, which is waterproof.
Right.
Had that put into the top of this small Pelly case. And then military connectors put onto B3s on the other end. And so that plugged in, and so bingo, you've got a waterproof recorder with a microphone. So we had to, but it's quite big. I mean, it's like a sort of pencil case. So we thought, so how can we carry these around? So the idea was to put it in a pouch on the side of the belt.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, so where does the microphone go?
Yeah.
So if you've ever seen a Sam Brown belt, the army used to wear them, I think the Cubs probably did. Yeah. It goes up and around the shoulders, which leaves this part in exactly the right position for a microphone. So as you can see here,
let's skip to a moment where they're wearing one.
Okay, when you get them on.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone wore one of these. So it held the mic in the perfect position. Everything else is.
What's the mic's rig? Because there's a bit of stitching in there. Is that sort of designed to keep the thing from falling
strap,
out?
the mic came up over the. Through the belt, up over the back, and then down into this little pocket, which we rigged with two furries. So essentially, one facing outwards, the sticky bit facing outwards, the other sticky bit facing inwards, and it's just down between there and then taped in.
Okay.
So it was well protected from wind.
Yeah.
It couldn't come out because it's attached like all the way along this thing. And should you get wet, the water would just drain straight out of it.
Yeah.
And it works rather well. I mean, the thing is, you can see it, but it looks like something that.
I don't think people would even realise that there was a mic in there. I mean, it's and basically they would wear that. They would just put that on and it would just go. They wouldn't have to physically press anything.
So in the morning, I'd get up,
do
the ERXs. Basically, they've got time coded the cameras. Then I'd go and I'd collect everyone's one of these.
Yeah.
I'd take them. No, actually, I wouldn't. First, I would go. There was a bay about half a kilometre away from us, and I would go there, pick up a Pelly case full of fresh ZFR recorders, because what we didn't want to do is be messing about with cards and stuff like that. These micro SD cards on a beach in the sand. You know, that's 12 hours or 24 hours of audio. Where's it going? And getting sand into the SD slot. So we thought, okay, we can't have that. So we had essentially two sets of these things. Every morning, they'll be loaded, fresh carded, batteried, set off, taken to the island and dumped on a beach away from us. Because we never saw any of them. No one ever saw us. We never saw them. So there was no contact. The whole point is, if you get people coming up who've just had breakfast, it kind of breaks the illusion that you're really buggered. So I go there, bring those back, swap out all the recorders, you know, so just give everyone essentially a new one. You know, the boxes, you just unplug their thing, put a new box in, make sure it's time coded, it's got grab time code from the IFB that's hanging in the tree. And then for the next 12 hours, they're good to go. Then I take all that stuff back to the other beach with all the dead batteries and all the shop stock. And then I come back and then I start my day. And then in the evening, after about 12, a lithium battery in a ZFR will run for about 15 hours. So I had a big window.
That's good,
So say I changed them at 7, I put them on at 7. I had till at least 11 at night. At least, you know, to change them. So at some point, when everyone got back to the camp after dinner or something, and all the major filming had been done, I'd then go around, grab everyone's recorder, change the batteries only. You know, so basically just open the box, change the batteries, put new batteries in, turn it back on, make sure it's jam time, go close it up, take it back, plug it back in. So there was, I'd say there's only probably a couple of minutes a day where they weren't actively being recorded. And in one of those times, our camp got inundated by crabs. I mean, literally, I was sitting there with all these boxes around me, and then suddenly an entire migration of crabs just came charging through the thing. Okay. Of all moments, you know.
I mean, there must have been so many challenges just from what you're telling me. That you made it sound easy, all of that. It's just, in the environment, even in a safe and clean environment, that's an awful lot of logistics to look after, especially in the. But then when you go onto an island with all the conditions, and the fact that you've got other restrictions like not being seen and having to coordinate it so you're not interfering with their experience.
Oh no, I was part of them.
You were? Did you get on camera then?
Yes, I was actually dropped there with them.
Oh, okay.
So me, the cameraman, and the 2 shooting directors were part of the people who were stranded there.
Right.
So we were all on it.
Yeah.
The thing I couldn't do was I couldn't see whoever was dropping off the kit.
Oh, okay.
Because basically it was everyone who was dumped on the island was isolated for a month. They saw no one else.
So you were having to catch fish and do all those things that they were doing as well? Oh, right. I'm going to watch this show now. I'm going to watch this.
The first series, I mean, just to say, the first series is the only series where no one ever left. Right. And we were given the least. We were given, I think, 15 litres of water, 3 machetes, 3 sheath knives, and that's it.
Yeah.
And just left there.
Yeah. It did seem to me like this is scary. Like you were actually attacking alligators, and these things are fierce, dangerous creatures. And
we were very hungry though.
Very hungry. Yeah, I was like, I can't believe it.
Because they were us, and really it was going to be them.
And so, I mean, you got to say, did anything go? What went wrong? Something must have gone wrong with it, with all of this. Did you have moments where you lost things, or when things went unexpected in some direction? What was?
To the truth, it went surprisingly well. I mean, we broke cameras consistently because everything, you know, we were living on a beach.
Yeah.
There's no kit room to take them back to, nothing.
Yeah.
So we broke things reasonably consistently.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the actual first Bear Grylls The Island was completely unscripted because they had no idea what was going to happen. And rather like, if I may say so, the first Big Brother, it was really rather good because what they do, they just put the people there and let them get on with it.
Yeah.
It wasn't produced in any way. The only thing that they would produce is they'd say, because I had a walkie-talkie as well, we needed one for
safety,
emergencies, exactly. So sometimes they would walk in and say, okay, we've got this scene, the thing that happened yesterday, you know, that big fight, or that big argument. What we really need at some point in the next day or two is to see that person walking into the camp. It's, you know, nuts and bolts. It's not do the scene again or do the story. It's but to make that work, we kind of need a long shot of them on the beach walking or something like that. So they would just go on the hit list, you know, for the cameramen and the directors to shoot. But other than that, no, because it was whatever happened, and it just organically did. But sound, no, I mean, if I say so, sound worked pretty bloody well. Considering, I mean, surprised me, but it really did work well.
So let's just quickly go into SAS Who Dares Wins, because SAS Who Dares Wins was, again, they were wearing recorders, but you had a slightly different rig this time around. It was a sort of custom designed.
Yes, I designed, because the Sam Brown belts work perfectly for the island. But if you're wearing a T-shirt and combat trousers, okay, and also the producers of the show didn't want anything like that. So I needed a way that the people who were actually taking part in the programme could put these on themselves without breaking them.
Yeah.
And it needed to be gagged against the weather, and it needed to sort of protected against all sorts of stuff. So I went to these wonderful people down in Gillingham called Orbisons, who made those bags for me, and they make all my stuff. And I said, look, I want to make this kind of like a lanyard, a soft something that go around the neck that I can put a mic in. And we tried lots of things. We tried neoprene, which is scratchy as anything. We tried lots of things. And eventually we came up with this sort of fleece type thing with a big popper in the front that you could, once you popped it on, you could actually do that with it. So it would go like a V-neck, which held the mic in exactly the right place.
Yeah, okay.
Also, they knew which was the front.
Yeah.
You know, because people, you know, you're tired, you're exhausted, and you know, all.
Yeah.
So it was an easy enough thing. They just literally put it over their head,
Yeah.
and providing the poppers in front of them, they're good to
And
go.
they were in
And
and
then
out of mud and rain, so there was aqua packs and things
yeah,
like that.
then it was an aqua pack in a essentially like a sports belt for iPhones or something. So you
Right.
just slide the aqua pack into that
Yeah.
belt. It's an elastic belt, so
Yeah.
you pull it up over your legs.
Mm.
It's got a a wire hanging out with a lanyard, this
Mm.
fluffy thing you put around your neck. So you just put it around your neck and you're ready to go.
They do themselves,
Yeah.
presumably, yeah.
And that's okay. The first series they didn't do that because they wouldn't have it, and they made us mic them up
Yeah,
traditionally,
yeah,
which I truly had reservations about because the thing is, there's 30 of them to start with.
yeah.
Okay, if you do that once a day, fair enough. It takes an hour,
Mm.
even with a couple of you doing it, but you can do it in an hour. But the trouble is, what they do is they'd get them out of bed
Yeah.
where they want them mic'd,
So now you want it,
and now they want them to run out of the
Yeah.
base and go into the water, which means they have to change. So you have to unmic them,
Yeah,
take that off, put a ZFR in an
Yeah.
aqua pack in, mic them up again, and then they run off, get in the water, and then they run them back to base, and they want to do more stuff at base. So, and I said, it's going to just take so much time, but
yeah. They learned.
second series went better. Yeah, I said, look, I've just designed
Yeah.
this, put it on themselves.
All right.
They can all do it together. They come
Yeah.
off, they come out of the base.
Yeah,
They pass 1 point.
yeah. Rig
Turn the
themselves.
cameras away for a second.
Yeah,
There's a board with lots of nails on. So
Yeah.
candidate 1.
yeah.
You just take that off, put your one on, put the new one on, and you're off. And then when you come back into base, again, same thing. You can all do it together. It'll take 2
Yeah.
minutes, and you can come in and out as often as you like.
So this has been fascinating. Thank you very much for sharing with us. I think Kiff has helped make shows which seem impossible possible by using technology in unforeseen ways and making it kind of and giving opportunities which haven't been there before. So we just want to say thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for sharing with us today, Kiff.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can sort of come back and show you some more in-depth videos soon.